Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bourbon Bites Whiskey Reviews with an 80s twist. I'm your host, Clifton. Welcome to another Thursday night live stream. Whether you're watching live or you're watching the replay, I'm so glad to have you here. Welcome to what is sure to be a very fun night. It's been a minute since we've interviewed anyone from a distillery, so I'm so grateful from our friends at RD1 who reached out and were interested in coming on a stream. So we'll get to that in just a second, but I do want to, of course, start off with a toast to our friend Scott Pigsley. I'm sure many of you already know the news. I'm one of the last channels to go live after the tragic passing of our friend. You may know him as Fifth Quarter Tailgate. I may know him as Scott Pigsley. He has been a supporter of the channel for many years. He had his own channel as well. So whatever you're drinking, or if you're not drinking, make sure to raise a glass to our dear friend Scott. Thank you for all you've done for WhiskeyTube. Thank you for being there, being an amazing moderator in our chats, and Scott, seriously, you're great. So if anyone has any thoughts or memories they've had with Scott and they want to share in the chat, please feel free to share them. I think it's really great to remember some of our best memories of those who we've lost. And yeah, so hopefully I'm not the first one telling you that news. I think a lot of you have heard it from other channels, but just wanted to give him a cheers and a toast to Fifth Quarter Tailgate. So tonight, well, before we get into, I'm going to go and get all the news out of the way because I'm going to forget if I don't. We are doing our monthly movie night tomorrow night for Patreon. That's everyone at the $5 tier or above. We are watching Blues Brothers. Never seen it. You guys have been asking for it. And you're like, why haven't you seen this? I'm like, I don't know why I haven't seen it, but I haven't seen it. So we'll be doing that tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. We'll be doing it on Discord, but it's for everyone $5 and up on Patreon. If you're curious about how to do that, there's a link in the description down below for Patreon, all the different tiers down there, as well as our Discord server if you guys want to join us and have fun there. So I want to say hello to a few folks before we get going. Hello to Tony. Good to see you here in the chat. Emily, good to see one of our incredible mods. Zopher, a patron and supporter for many years. Good to see you, Zopher. Donnie, another incredible patron and mod. So good to see you, Brandon. We got the whole mod crew out tonight. We'll see. We'll see if we need you guys. No, we appreciate you in the chat. Yeah, by the way, if you guys have any questions throughout the night, our special guests will gladly answer them. So feel free to ask any questions throughout. Adam Free joining us from the airport. Hopefully your delayed flight lasts not much longer. Brandon, of course. Or sorry, Patrick. I was reading your response to Brandon. And I think I got everyone. Taste and Sensibility. What's up, Doug? Good to see you. Stacy, Four Leaf Whiskey. You go check out both of their channels. And cheers to you, James Taylor, as well. By the way, can you guys hear and see everything all right? I want to make sure audio and video are good before we get going. But yeah, so like I said, very special guest. We're drinking at least 4 pours tonight. I may have a special one I pull out at the end. But yeah, I guess we're going to get started. I assume you guys can hear and see. I see people responding to me. So Tony says he will behave. So all right, so without further ado, please welcome our very special guest to the stream tonight. He is the co-founder and national brand ambassador of RD1 Spirits. Please welcome Barry Brinegar. What's up, Barry? Oh, I don't hear your audio. I think you're muted. Hold on, let me fix it. Oh, it says you've muted yourself. There we go.
There we go. That darn technology.
It's all good. Yeah, so happy
excited to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here. So I actually tasted RD1 for the very first time at New Orleans Bourbon Festival. I had an absolute blast there. I think you were there. I think I probably talked to you. I don't know. It was a blur. But
that's what New Orleans does for you. It can be a blur.
Yeah, it was my very first time visiting the city, and oh my god, I had a blast. I did the Bourbon Festival. I did a swamp tour. I did everything New Orleans had to offer, so I loved it. But yeah, that was my first time trying RD1, and was really curious about the brand. By the way, I love the bottle design, and I think you have a little bit of history about that as well. We can get into a bit later. But before we talk about the brand, let's talk a little bit about yourself. Like, what's your story? Like, how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to be on here and talk about RD1. Registered Distillery #1 out of Lexington, Kentucky. It was first, the brand was established in 1865. It was called the Ashland Distillery. And so back in the 1860s, in 1861, President Lincoln needed to re-register distilleries. So before that time, distilleries didn't pay tax revenues since the Whiskey Rebellion of 1800. And so every tax district had an RD1, RD2, RD3. Now we know distilleries are designated as DSPs, distilled
Right.
spirits plants. So that was the tax designation back in the 1860s. And so Lexington had the Ashland Distillery, then later became known as the William Tarr Distillery. So
Hmm.
a group of folks with me as one of the co-founders, we established RD1 Spirits to pay honor and respect to Lexington's first registered distillery, and then write that next chapter. So tonight, what we're going to sample is that next chapter of what more can Kentucky bourbon do with wood finishing. And so
Hmm.
we're super excited. We'll talk about a new brand destination that we're opening up in Lexington. We're on the Bourbon Trail, and yeah, we're super excited to bring innovation and continued interest in the Bourbon Trail for folks that are coming into Kentucky from inside the state and outside the state and outside the U.S. market. We love bourbon tourism, and we're super excited to be a part of that with all the other member KDA distilleries.
That's awesome. So you like you mentioned, I was actually a bit confused about the whole DSP and RD of it all, and thank you for explaining that off the top. I mean, I think everyone always thinks DSP, but the fact that you have this namesake of being the reference to RD1 from that distillery is such a cool. I love that's one of my favorite things about like brands that are new brands but honor the traditions of the past. I love seeing that and hearing that history and learning it. And I think what better way to do it than with this. And I mentioned the bottle a bit earlier. I saw on the website that you guys kind of, with the bottle design, is a tribute to some of the older spirits that were distilled there. Can you tell a little bit about by the way, beautiful bottle design. It definitely stands out. Can you talk a little bit about that? Maybe what inspired it?
Yeah, so this is actually based off of an 1800 squat bottle that we have in our inventory. So we're going to have a museum archive, and if you look, there's a tree on the neck label, and that's a nod to the Ashland Distillery. So the Ashland Distillery had a tree on its label, so that kind of gives a nod to the very first registered distillery. And then on the bottle embossed is Kentucky born and raised. We're a Kentucky brand. This is a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, and so we wanted to give a nod to that Kentucky born and raised brand. And then at the bottom here, you can see there's a four plank horse fence, and that is a nod to our thoroughbred industry. So if you understand Kentucky, we have that most exciting 2 minutes of sports called the Kentucky Derby. I tell the story to a lot of people when I'm doing tastings is, how thoroughbred horses got to Kentucky?
No.
So we would transport back in the day, we would transport barrels of bourbon on flatboat bottoms down to New Orleans. And so,
Okay.
coming from Louisville, coming from the Kentucky River, we're floating that down and we're selling our barrels in New Orleans. We're selling the flatboat bottoms, and a lot of those flatboats were made into housing down in New
Hmm.
Orleans. But we're buying the fastest horse that we can buy so that we can take our money that we've got from selling the boat and selling the bourbon back up to Kentucky before the Indians steal our hides, scalp us, or yeah, and somebody that wants to take our money. So we're bringing these horses back up to Kentucky. And
Hmm.
what is Kentucky known for? We make 95% of all the world's bourbon because of limestone water. Limestone water filters out iron, which is not good for making distillate, but it also adds calcium and magnesium. And what that does, these horses are eating the Kentucky bluegrass, they're drinking that water, and it's causing their bone structure to be much more robust. And so these horses are becoming faster and faster. So that's why we have a strong concentration of thoroughbred horses in Kentucky, because we brought them up from New Orleans. And so it's a great story. So that bottle helps tell the story of thoroughbred horses in Kentucky.
Wow. I knew about the whole, going to New Orleans and stuff. I didn't even think about the fact about the horses needing to bring those barrels. That's such an incredible. I mean, it kind of ties it all together, right? Like the horse, like that's
Yes.
what Kentucky. If you think Kentucky, you think bourbon, you think horses. So it makes total sense. Well,
Uh,
so this brand, when did RD1 start? When you got involved with it?
Yeah, so I'm the co-founder, and so I got together with my other co-founders. We wrote a business plan back in the late 2019. The first person we pitched to is Mark Stoops. Mark is the University of Kentucky football coach,
Oh wow.
and he absolutely loves the story. He loves the bourbon, and he's like, I'm all in. So we wrote a business plan. First person we talked to said, I'll give you what you're asking, and fortunately, we spoke to an angel investor the next day, and we were like, we, feel obligated to talk with you about what we're doing here, but just want you to know we've got what we've already asked. And we
Wow.
pitched it to Mike Tedderton and Marcia Couch, and they loved it. They said, we don't think you're asking for enough money. And we kind of jokingly laughed about it because we got what we were asking. So we raised our ask. And of course, this is during a global pandemic. So
Right.
January, we pitch to Mark, we get our ask, we have all of the business plan put together, and then a global pandemic ensues.
Hmm.
And so we have to buy a still, we have to have it installed, we have to buy liquid, cost of goods. We do all of that in 10 months time. So in October of 2020, we have a product on the shelf.
Wow.
And of course, our business plan was based on 80% gift shop sales and 20% distribution. COVID changed all that.
Mm-hmm.
We know now COVID has dynamically changed a lot of businesses. But
Hmm.
what COVID did is, instead of having an on-premise where you're going to a bar and a restaurant and you're consuming alcohol, or an off-premise where you're going to a liquor store and buying liquor, we have an own premise. So the concept of an own premise is, I'm consuming alcohol in my own house. And
Right.
so dynamically, we had to change that whole concept of 80% gift shop sales, because people aren't going out and visiting gift shops. And so we flipped the script and made 80% distribution and 20% gift shop sales. So today we are in 26 markets across the US. By the end of this year, we'll be in 29 markets. So we really focused and changed our business strategy to move into that distribution model. And it's a whole different model, but thank God that we now are seeing a change in the bourbon tourism. We're building from the ground up a brand destination where we'll be mashing, fermenting, and
Mm.
distilling in Lexington on Main Street. We are on the Bourbon Trail. We've hired a wood scientist from the University of Kentucky. He's got his PhD in wood maturation. And so what we're doing and what we're going to taste today is the evolution, the start of what RD1 is about, which is wood finishing, Kentucky straight bourbon. And we're going to continue to evolve that with our wood scientists. And you'll be able to come into our brand destination, go into our wood science lab. And if you want to create your own perfect wood finish barrel, we'll have our wood scientists that'll be right there to help you do that.
Wow, that's such a cool. It's a different take on it. I mean, I know a lot of people are doing finishing, but to open that up to make it really experiential, especially for people that are coming to visit, that's something that I feel like the Bourbon Trail doesn't necessarily have, at least from my experience. Again, I'm all the way on the West Coast. I've only done the Bourbon Trail once, and I was very limited in time. But I love seeing new concepts, and I think that's such a fun thing. It's something that a lot of people that may be new to bourbon don't think much about in terms of the wood finishes and all of that. And there's such an amazing world, especially now. Just, I mean, some of those we're going to be trying today are something that I think I've only discovered in the next past year or two. So I'm really excited. So let's get, before we get into the wood finish series, let's go with what started it all, right? The small batch Kentucky bourbon. Tell us a little bit about this one. Is this the first release you guys had that you put out back in October of 2020?
Yeah, so the first release that we had back in October of 2020 was a Burr rye. So it was an 8 year
Okay.
bourbon, a 7 year rye, and it was an LTO, limited time offering of giving an homage to William Tarr, who was one of the first owners of RD1. And we knew that that was going to be a limited time offering. The What we're getting ready to consume is a Kentucky straight bourbon. It's a 70% corn, 21% rye, and a 9% malted barley. It is at 98 proof. So everything that we're tasting here is from this traditional Kentucky straight bourbon, and
Okay.
it's the quintessential Kentucky straight bourbon, sweet because of that corn, 70% corn. It's got a little character from the rye, a little cracked peppercorn on that mid palate, and it has a nice sweet finish of orange citrus. So let's taste through this and see what you get on your palate.
Yeah, I'm so excited to give it a try. I say that after I've already drank half the bottle, but shush. All right,
Awesome.
cheers. Thank you, Barry.
Cheers. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that proof. I always say right around 100 proof is my favorite proof. Just 100 to 110 is like my jam. I mean, I do love the high proof releases, but when I'm trying something for the first time, I think this like is right at the proof I want to try it at. And this, like, I mean, it almost reminds me of a cocktail. You said citrus. I do get a little bit of that citrus on the end. It kind of does remind me of a cocktail. I could see this working incredibly well in a cocktail. But to me, it's sweet, but it has character to it, and it makes me want to.
Yeah.
I know on the bottle it says aged 4+ years. Is that still like around that age? I'm just curious on the age of
Yeah,
that.
we're gonna have, as we continue to evolve, we've got a liquid strategy where we're continuing to age those barrels. So you're gonna see on the label a 5 year plus age statement. And what we found is that as these barrels continue to age, there's something that magical occurs in that 5, 6, and 7 year time frame where there's a balance of flavor from the aroma to the front end of the palate, the mid palate, and the finish that is super special. And so we're excited to continue to have the aged barrels in our Kentucky straight bourbon. We've got now this year 150 barrels allocated for our barrel program. A portion of those are going to be 6, 7 year age stated Kentucky straight bourbons, and then the wood finish series, which we'll get into here in just a moment.
Mhm.
But really, I love our Kentucky straight bourbon. It's Jacob Cole was from Green River. He was their
Mm.
master distiller. We bought a lot of barrels that Jacob laid down, and then
Okay.
Jacob is now one of the co-founders and owners of Western Kentucky Distilling Company, and my partner Mike Tedderton is an owner of the Western Kentucky Distilling Company with Jacob, and so they're continuing to lay down our new make, and so as we continue to evolve, we will incorporate those new make barrels into the aged barrels that we've got from Green River.
Gotcha. Okay, I was gonna say because you mentioned you guys were buying a still early on. So are you guys just starting to distill your own stuff and age that stuff as well?
We are so in Lexington. That still that we have, it's a hybrid still. It's a 288 gallon hybrid still. It'll
Mhm.
be our research and development still, where we'll
Okay.
be laying down heirloom grains and really trying to fine tune what mash bills that we want to continue to produce, and then we'll produce those in our production distillery in Western Kentucky.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's cool. I mean, you guys are so new. There's still so much experimentation and things you guys can explore. So that's really cool. People are asking. So, by the way, my viewers are very nerdy, so they're asking some questions that you may not know the answers to. They're asking like the barrel entry proof on some of these that in this particular release. Is that something that you happen to know or anything like that?
Yeah, yeah. So, great question. We get that asked a lot. Barrel entry proof's 120 proof,
Okay.
and typically most master distillers love that number 3 char.
Mm.
And so, believe it or not, most master distillers, just like the number three char, they don't heavily toast. A lot of heavily toasting barrels is with that secondary maturation, because you really don't want a whole lot of wood tannins. You want a lot of the sweetness from the wood that comes from the
Hmm.
toasting. So number three char and 120 proof barrel entry proof.
Gotcha. And then when you decided on the 98 proof, was there any particular reason? Did you kind of A/B test like some lower proofs, higher proofs? I'm just curious how you settled on 98.
Yeah, we have a tasting panel, and so I mean we go down with everything that we put out. We're sampling it at cast strength, and then we're proofing it down to find
Hmm.
out where is the sweet spot with either the wood finishing or where it has the most character. But then my palate, Clifton, I'm a high proof, straight from the barrel, uncut,
Hmm.
unfiltered. We don't want me to pick out proof for my palate, because
Sure. We're
I'm in
not
the
the average.
one.
I'm with you
Yeah,
there. We're not the average consumer.
yeah, we're not, but it's casting that wide net and
Mm.
understanding that 90% of spirits consumer really is kind of that entry level,
Right.
so
Hmm.
that 100 or under 100 proof is going to be the right proof point. And then of course you got to factor in the the financial piece. So anything above 100 proof, you're paying a little bit more on taxes,
Mm.
and it all matters. At the end of the day, if we're not profitable, we're going to cease to be in existence. So
Sure.
it all matters. The story matters, what's in the bottle matters, and our cost of goods and how much we make. It all matters, but at the end of the day, you need to have a great experience. The consumer needs to feel good. They need to enjoy the memory moment that's being created when they come to the Bourbon Trail. And what you're seeing at the Kentucky Bourbon Trail is this change, this dynamic change. So it's no longer legacy distilleries and craft distilleries. It's just the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. So
Hmm.
you'll see different regions like Louisville, Lexington, Bardstown, Northern Kentucky, we're all being lumped together, and it's called the napification of the Bourbon Trail, because it's
Hmm.
more based on experiences. It's
Hmm.
not just this is how we mash, this is how we ferment, this is how we distill, which is important. You want to see that, but then you want to go to that next step of, here we're tasting, we're doing an advanced sensory tasting, similar to what we see in Napa Valley, where we're incorporating different components to enhance the flavors, or we're doing a full on four-course meal that's paired with bourbon, or we're doing an experience. So we're doing entertainment, and
Hmm.
like amphitheater with log steel, they're bringing Nashville style musicians that are coming in and creating that experience with the bourbon. We're doing the same thing in Lexington with our entertainment center at Turner Commons. With our new distillery, we're going to have an indoor outdoor amphitheater. We're going to have a restaurant that's going to be right there on site. So it truly is that experiential piece when enjoying the Bourbon Trail.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've never been to Napa, but there's quite a few wineries, even down here closer to LA, that it's like you said, it's all about the experience. It's like having the beautiful view, having live music, food trucks, or whatever you want to do. Like I'm all about that. So I think I can't wait to see. I would love to. I can't wait to revisit the Bourbon Trail. I know a lot of other distilleries are also kind of trying to get into that, and I think that's such a because I mean the bourbon tourism is relatively new in the past 15 years, I would say maybe. Like I think a lot
It
of
is.
people, yeah,
Yeah.
didn't think to like go out to a distillery. That just sounds like to us, it's like, oh, that sounds fun, but it's like people maybe 15 years ago, they're like, why would I go to a distillery?
Right, right. And we weren't set up for it. But what we found is, these distilleries are calling each other, hey, are you getting guests that are coming in wanting to tour your location? Yeah. But we're not set up for it. And
Mm,
fortunately, the bourbon, the Kentucky Distillers Association recognized this and helped create the Bourbon Trail. So we're very fortunate in Kentucky to have an association that helps lobby the state and federal government to help us have a viable industry. It's Kentucky's signature industry with creating $9 billion a year tourism revenue to the state. It really, when people come to Kentucky, they think of Kentucky Derby, they think of bourbon, and we want you to always think of bourbon and the Kentucky Derby when you think of Kentucky.
Definitely. Yeah, our friend Gandy Wood says, looking forward to visiting RD1. So yeah, so when you said you guys, this is all kind of still in progress. Do you have an estimated like opening for this? Do you guys? Am I understanding right? There's two different locations you guys have, or is it just one?
So in Lexington, in the Distillery District, we have a gift shop now. So you can come, you can do a tasting, you can thief straight from the barrel, you can bottle your own bottle and put a custom label on it in our current gift shop. But we're building from the ground up a brand destination that's going to be mashing, fermenting, and distilling in Lexington. And then we have our production distillery that's in Ohio County in Western Kentucky.
Got it. Okay, cool. So you guys are kind of all spread out, but all still local to that same kind of
Yeah.
central idea of Lexington. Don Nishida is joining us all the way from Hawaii. He says he got to meet Barry at This Is My Bourbon podcast weekend. Our friend Perry hosted a few weeks ago.
Yes, yes,
I
I
was
remember.
I'm so sad I couldn't make it. I know Perry's been a good friend of mine for many years, so I'm glad to see a lot of his viewers are also viewers here. So you may see some familiar faces in the chat. I see a couple questions regarding the William Tarr label. Is that something that you guys plan to be as like a limited release, or is it kind of something that was just kind of a one off? I'm curious to hear if there's like plans for maybe doing a future release of that.
Yeah, great question. And here's what I'll say: it's so important for us to recognize the historical nature of bourbon, but also recognize that we're creating a brand with RD1 Spirits, and so I believe that we will continue to see these bourbon baron collections that will come out, periodically, but they'll come under the RD1 spirits portfolio. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah, because people asked about the label. Actually, I had a sample sent to me by a friend before the stream of the Inheritance release. I think is that the first one that you guys did, or?
Yeah, that's a 12 year. It's a Kentucky straight bourbon, and it is absolutely some of the best bourbon. We kept it at cask strength, so
Oh
it's
wow.
there's a small batch that's 120 proof, and then we had some single barrels that were ranged anywhere from 121 to 123 proof. Absolutely delicious.
I
Love
will
the
say
inheritance.
I will save that for the end of the stream. I'd love to try. I haven't tried it yet. I was seeing if this was one of the single barrels. He sent me the label. It's 120 proof, so it's batch
Okay,
B190. So
yeah,
yeah, I'll
that's the
obviously
small
save
batch.
that. Yeah, I'll save that for the end because everything else is a little bit lower proof than that. So, but let's get into the barrel finished series. So the first one we have here is the French oak finish.
Yeah.
This one's coming in at 101 proof, which is a couple proof points higher than the standard release. Tell us about this one.
Yeah, so super proud of the French oak. I love French oak. It stays within the flavor wheel of a traditional bourbon,
Hmm.
and so for me, French oak, it does lend itself to some wonderful baking chocolate. So not
Hmm.
overly sweet, but there's a much more complex flavor component to it. I get more stone fruit on this one than
Hmm.
I do orange citrus on the traditional. It is more complex. And what I love about it is it stays within that flavor wheel of traditional bourbon.
Yeah, French oak has always been one of my favorites. It brings such a spicy. I don't want to almost. I kind of want to lean towards like holiday spice, a little bit more like Christmassy, little things. At least that puts my mind. That's where it puts my mind. But man, yeah, that nose is so obviously different. And in terms of age, these are all relatively the same, right? They're based off of this original release.
They are, yeah. So right now we're sampling anywhere from 4 to 6 year small batch barrels. Yeah, and we do a
Okay.
very small batch when we're wood finishing or our straight bourbon. It's about 10 barrels in a
Okay.
batch that we're doing. But again, this one, the French oak, was unanimous with the tasting panel. We all said this one needs to be our very first wood finish series, the French oak. And what I love about French oak is that there's still the character of that 21% rye. It interacts a little differently, so it actually tamps down that cracked peppercorn on the mid palate, but you still get some complexity in the the aroma, the palate, and the finish. And I really enjoy it. I think it takes you on a little bit more of a journey than the traditional Kentucky straight bourbon.
Awesome. I cannot wait to give it a try. I'm seeing a few other people say they've met you. I think they met you at Perry's thing as well. Tony said he was there. Who is Taylor Boone says they're there. I don't know if that's their name, Taylor Boone, or that's just their username. I don't know. But they said they've met you. So very cool. Well, I'm excited to give this a try. Yeah, let's go for it. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hmm. Oh yeah, man. Like I said before, I love French oak. But this proof, I think I've had French oak at lower proofs before that didn't quite work as well. I mean, this like you said, 101 proof, so we're jumping up only 3 proof points. But
Yep.
you compared to the small batch bourbon, this it tastes spicier, but in a good way. Again, I'm someone that normally likes higher proof, but even though it's 101 proof, that French oak gives it a bit of a different kind of spice. Now, I'm not talking about like burn, not like alcohol burn, but just
Yep.
a again, I say like a holiday spice to me. It kind of reminds me of like Thanksgiving or Christmas. I don't know. What does it give you? Like, what notes do you get on the French oak?
Yeah, so I get a sweetness. It's more baking chocolate on my palate,
Mm,
stone fruit, but the wood tannins, that French oak really does impart some of the wood tannins. And so if someone's really sensitive to the wood char, the oak, the leather, this is a more it gives you some of the notes of the sweetness of the fruit with the
mm,
wood, but it also gives you some of the character of the oak and the leather. So that's what I love about it, is that it gives you older notes, but it still provides some of the sweet notes in the baking chocolate and the stone fruit that really mesh well for my palate. It's a much more complex flavor profile than the traditional. Nothing wrong with the traditional, but this one, absolutely, this one works great in a classic cocktail. And I love it. It's my daily sipper.
mm. Gotcha. Yeah, and I think even if it is preferred over the original, I think it's fun to still try the original and kind of see what impact that wood has on it. Which we could talk a little bit like the process. I know everyone kind of does their wood finishing a bit differently. What is your process? Like, how do you guys infuse or whatever you do? I'd love to hear the process.
Yeah, so the most important thing is that you have to have a product that's good coming out of that bottle. You have to have a product that's affordable to the masses, and that's reproducible. And so we use the existing American oak barrel.
Okay.
We put staves into the existing barrel, and
Mm,
and then we're tasting at 2 weeks. We're tasting for finish, and depending on the time of the year, summertime, you're going to get a lot more influence of that wood quicker. And so once we get it to where the tasting panel says it's good, we pull those staves out of that barrel, and then we small batch them together. So that's
got
kind of
it.
the process. And we're able, because of that process, to be able to keep the cost of goods low, so that the straight bourbon, it's a $59 bottle. Each of
Okay.
these wood finishes are $69 a bottle. That's
Got it.
suggested retail. So we wanted to create an affordable product that the masses could enjoy and afford, rather than use a secondary barrel, and our cost of goods going up makes
Sure.
that bottle 80, 90, $100 a bottle. And then we narrow the amount of opportunity we have for consumers to want to spend that much on a bottle.
Definitely. Do you guys do any kind of extra toasting or charring or anything to the staves to kind of bring out some of the flavors?
Yes, I love that question. So, the extra toasting on that French oak, when we get to the last one, the double oak and maple, you're going to see some wonderful expressions of what toasting does. So we do. These are virgin woods that
Mm.
are heavily toasted, and so you're going to get that influence from the toasting of that wood that changes the composition of the wood to give it the flavor. So we'll you're enjoying that with the French oak, but
Mhm.
we're getting ready to move into the next one, the Ambarana, which is just a wild adventure, way
Oh,
outside the
I
flavor
I
wheel.
do know that. I like I said, that was what I mentioned a bit earlier of like just being introduced to it in the past year and a half, just seeing it kind of blow up, not just in the bourbon world or even I've had some rye whiskeys as well, but I even had a beer that was actually aged in Ambarana cask recently. I'm like, this is taking off. This is becoming like the new trend, but I love it. It's fun. So let's talk a little about the next one. So this is the Brazilian Ambarana Wood release. Now this one is 110 proof. So
Yep.
we're jumping up pretty majorly. Was there a reason that you jumped so high in proof with this one?
So proof has such a significant impact on flavor, and so if you've had anything Ambarana finish, you're going to get significantly different flavor notes depending on where it lands on the proof point. And one of the things that we wanted to do is we loved when we first experimented with Ambarana, we sampled it with our sales team, and the sales team said, "Put this in a bottle now."
Mm.
And we're like, yeah, this is really good. And we think we have something special. But when we started playing with the proof, we landed on this 110 proof. And what happens at this 110 proof is you get the lovely influence of Ambarana. So if you've not had Ambarana before, probably most of your viewers have had it, but it is flavors way outside the flavor wheel. So you're getting cinnamon, nutmeg, clove, allspice. You're getting a ginger snap, beautiful flavor profile. There's a cinnamon apple strudel, so you're
Mm.
pulling in some of the whiskey notes along with the Ambarana, and then there's this tropical profile. For me, I get coconut on the finish. Some people
Mm.
get a pineapple. It is absolutely delicious, and that 110 proof marries the best of the Ambarana along with the whiskey notes.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most difficult ones to explain, but I think the one note that like someone said to me before I had even tried it was cinnamon toast crunch, like the cereal. And I think that note kind of nails like if you're just looking for a general one note to describe it all, it's like the sugary cereal cinnamon of it all. And it is so different. Every product I have that's finished in it takes on a different characteristic. So I haven't had this one yet, but yeah, I'm so excited. I know this wood is so finicky and you have to be so precise about how long you actually use it because I have heard that it can go overboard really, really quickly. So you said you taste the other ones every few weeks, whatever. Was this something you had to keep your eye on even more than that?
Yeah, this one's really important because if you've had anything over influenced, you get the character of that wood, and with this one, it can become one note really quickly,
Mm,
and so 2 weeks with every wood finish, we're tasting at 2 weeks just so that we don't get over influenced.
got it. So Don said he actually bottled one of these himself at 119.8 proof. So I assume that's probably straight from the barrel there.
Yeah, yeah. So had a super fun experience with the folks when Perry did the influencer event. Um, the group came in. We were able to thieve straight from the barrel,
Mm,
and so they were able to thieve either a straight bourbon or each of the one finish series at barrel
okay.
strength. And then we had and we still do. We have an apple wood finish barrel and a
Oh,
rum
nice.
cast finish,
Oh,
absolutely
fun.
delicious. And that's, kind of the fun part. If you've ever done a distillery tour, less than 1% of the population have thieved straight from the barrel. And so what we have that experience. So you can thieve straight from the barrel, put it in a 200 ml bottle that's a custom bottle, and create your own label. And that's what a lot of the team did when they came in for that experience.
That's so cool. Actually, that answers. We just got a question that answers it. They're saying, "What options do you have for bottle your own?" So yeah, so you guys have that, and I assume probably whatever other releases you guys are working on, there's a chance that maybe in the future there'll be additional finishes people can try.
there will be more, and what we want to do is we understand that everybody's palate's different, and
Mhm.
so we want to have the option. If you just want a straight bourbon, if you want some of our experimental wood finishes or our core four at barrel strength, you're going to have that opportunity when you come to the brand destination.
Gotcha. Very cool. Well, I'd love. The only time I've done something similar, I'm not. I don't think I'm considered that 1% people that have done that. I've thieved from the barrel of a barrel that was being finished. So I mean, that's kind of. I want the experience of like going to the original barrel. Like as much as I love finishing, I
Yeah.
still have yet to have straight from the barrel. Like just like the barrel that's aged this bourbon the whole time. That's a goal of mine. Next time I get to Kentucky, I got to give that a try. So I gotta visit you guys.
Absolutely, we'd love to have you.
Yeah, and our friend Brandon is actually he's actually good friends with Chris and Lil from Australia. I think you guys are good friends. Yeah, he's actually traveling out there to meet with them for Bourbon on the Banks coming soon. I wish I could make it again, but are you guys going to Bourbon on the Banks?
We are. So we were looking at which. We're in 26 states, so every state I'm in Nashville tonight, and we'll be at the World of Whiskey Festival on Saturday,
Oh,
and
I was
so
gonna ask, yeah, why you were in Nashville, the World of Whiskey Festival. Ooh, that sounds fun.
so much fun. We've done the World of Whiskey in Chicago. We're gonna do it in Florida. Love these festivals because that's how we met. We met
Right,
at the New
exactly.
Orleans Bourbon Festival,
Yep.
and for me, I'm among my people when I'm at a bourbon festival because ultimately I'm a consumer. I
Right.
love bourbon.
Hmm.
And so I enjoy the festivals and being able to chat with folks. But yeah, absolutely. So we will be at Bourbon on the Banks, the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, the third weekend in September. September's Bourbon Heritage Month. And
Hmm.
so Kentucky is going to have so many events, and we're going to be right there in Kentucky doing a lot of those
You're gonna
events,
be
like
busy.
Bourbon on the Banks.
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, September is like a very tough month for me for my work. I'll have to do a lot of work travel, but man, I can't wait. Next year, I'm going to try to clear my schedule and make it out to all that.
I think you
So
should.
Chris, by the way, I just actually mentioned Chris. Chris Tats from Australia saying good day to us from down under. So good to see you, Chris.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. They're going to come to they're in the Lexington Bourbon Society. They are
mhm,
members, and so super excited. They have hooked me up with the Bourbon Crusaders out of
mm.
Dallas Fort Worth. And Chris and his wife, good friends of ours. We love getting together with them when they're on holiday here in the U.S. market. So coming up, their trip, they've got a countdown on
Oh, I
Facebook.
know.
So it's
they're
coming up soon.
they're coming. They're stopping in Vegas. I'm meeting them out in Vegas for a few nights, and I've already experienced Vegas with them. That's a whole experience. It's so fun. But man, the Aussies know how to drink, and I love it.
Don't try to keep up with them.
Oh no, no. I tried that. Although I've seen their dark side too. Cool. Well, we got one more to here to try, and this is the one that you purposely said to save the end. By the way, I didn't give my tasting notes on the Ambarana, or I say Ambarana, but it's Ambarana, right? Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's Ambarana.
potato.
I was gonna say the bourbon holds up extremely well. I think like we said, sometimes we feel like that it maybe is a little bit over finished in it. This one, I think the bourbon still stands out. You are still getting those notes, but they're not overwhelming the palate. And I
Yeah.
think it doesn't drink 110 proof. Surprisingly, that kind of I know I hate to use the word smooth, right? Everyone hates that word in the whiskey world, but like it drinks very very easy for an amber on a cask.
And yeah, 110 proof. It definitely goes down very easy. We do cocktails. One of the things that we love with this Amberana is a paper plane. If you like
Oh,
cocktails,
okay.
oh my goodness, a paper plane. Those spices and the sweet
Hmm.
notes really sing with the paper plane profile. A mint julep, absolutely wonderful. For me, I love a mint julep during Derby, but
Hmm.
this puts a spicy and a sweet spin on it, which is
Right.
really delicious.
Ooh, I will have to. You know what? I have, I have less than half of a bottle, but I might have to save it for that because it's hot out here in Southern California, which is, I mean, like it's rare for it to feel hot out here, but I know other parts of the country are like dealing with intense heat. How is it in Tennessee right now?
Well, today it got up to 92.
Ooh,
It
man.
didn't have the same kind of humidity, but my
Yeah.
wife and I, we were walking around, a couple of days in Nashville. It was 95, 96, 100% humidity.
Ooh,
It
man.
it was I mean, we did a bourbon tasting a couple of days ago, and we're like, okay, we're going back to the hotel room because we're done. We're toast, and until
Yeah.
the sun went down. It's hot, but I've been to Southeast Texas. I've been to Florida. It's hot all over.
I know. I feel bad now that I said it's hot because like I'm from South Carolina, so I'm used to the hot, humid heat. So when I say hot out here in California, I've only been out here since 2018. For us, it's like 80 and 85, and it's like, oh, that's too hot. But then I remember I'm from South Carolina. And I'm like, oh, 80 and 85 in South Carolina is a whole different ball game with the humidity. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, yeah. In South Carolina, you got these sand fleas that will
Oh my
carry you
gosh.
off.
Yes, yes. I don't miss I love South Carolina. I love visiting back in the southeast, but man, the weather here in California is pretty great. That's why I have to pay the high rent that I have to pay out here.
Yes, yeah,
Cool. Well, we got we
absolutely.
got we got one more to try. This one is the one that you kind of said like save it for the end because it's going to kind of coat your palate and stick around for a while. This
Yeah.
is the double finished bourbon in oak and maple barrels. And it's funny, this one comes in at 99.9 proof. You made a comment earlier I was going to ask about where you said if you go over 100 proof, there's additional taxes. Is that the reason there's a 99.9 proof? Or what's the reason behind that?
there there may or may not be a economic reason to do that. I
Fair.
think I like the 99.9 proof because it's not a bottled in bond. It can't be a
Right.
bottled in bond. I Again, once we taste this, we're gonna go through some of the tasting notes, but it helps to balance some of the flavors of that maple and that French oak. Absolutely delicious.
I smell it
This
already. I literally
Yeah.
just poured it and I smell it already. That maple is coming through.
It is a sweet bomb. If you're a novice, you're gonna pick out maple
Really? You're
on
like,
the
oh,
on
I
the
taste
aroma.
maple. Very good. Very good. You're getting your tasting notes. Oh, wow. Man, I mean, on the nose, that's what's jumping out at first. But then again, I've tried all these different ones, and I've hyper focused on what's different from the original. So I'm gonna go before I sip that. I'm actually gonna go back to the straight bourbon whiskey just to try it to kind of set my palate because I'm worried if I don't, I'm gonna be overwhelmed by the maple, and I'm not gonna be able to focus on the whiskey underneath. So I'm
Yeah,
going back to the small batch real quick. Just get a sip of it real quick.
I love it, Clifton. I love that you're doing that. That's so smart.
Yeah, I mean, even after trying these other ones, like that holds up. I mean, that base. I mean, you can always finish crappy whiskey and make it taste a little bit better. But when you start with a good base, then it's only going to get way better. So I think that's
Yeah,
what's happened here. It's like you got a good base, you're only enhancing it with these different finishes.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, now the nose has settled down a little bit. I've kind of adjusted my senses a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and try the oak and maple barrel finish one. Cheers.
Cheers.
Mm. A lot more. I was worried it was going to be a bit sweet. I mean, obviously it's sweet, but I think the essence of the maple is more. It's weird. It's like not that it extracts the sweetness out of the maple, but it's like this isn't making sense. I'm sorry.
No,
It's
no.
like the esters of the maple are there, but not the heftiness and the thickness of like what you would expect from a maple finish.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
it makes perfect sense because so for me, the maple aroma, hundred
Hmm.
percent.
Yeah.
On the palate, though, it's not a sweet.
Hmm.
There's a butterscotch. There's
Hmm.
maple. There's definitely maple, but there's
Right.
a butterscotch sweetness. And then there's a little cracked peppercorn, from the
Oh
rye,
yeah. Hmm.
and then I get this distinct pecan note from the toasted French oak. That pecan note comes through hard and
Oh.
heavy.
Oh man, you
Really
just triggered my
delicious.
memory again. I haven't had. I say pecan pie because I'm from South Carolina, but I haven't actually had that flavor in a very long time. But as soon as you said that, that's
Yeah,
what's sticking around. The finish, it's up front with the maple. On the nose, it's
yeah.
maple. On the palate, you got butterscotch. I didn't necessarily get butterscotch for myself, but to me, it was more of just like I don't want to say dry. I didn't have another sip, but the point I'm making is once I got to the finish and after I swallowed, That you're right. It's that pecan note. It sticks around. Wow. What a
Yeah,
journey. I love when a whiskey takes me on a journey, and this definitely takes me on a flavor journey.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
So much fun.
Yeah, so Chris says the maples from RD1 are great. We had so much fun the other year doing a barrel pick with our friends from Bourbon on Rye. So very late at night with Barry.
Yeah, we spent a week one night together with Chris and the Bourbon on Rye folks. We sampled through. They brought a vintage pint bottle. We opened that. We
Oh
had so
wow.
much fun. And yeah, what I love about getting together. I mean, here is a couple from Australia. Bourbon brings people together globally.
Absolutely.
And absolutely love every time that they get to come to America and cherish the moments that we have to get together with them. So yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, so much fun.
I've met so many people through whiskey, and I think to outsiders, not people that it kind of experiences often, it sounds a bit crazy, like well, you met them through whiskey. But I've always felt that whiskey, bourbon in particular, brings people together, and I think I've met so many incredible people from it, and I cherish those friendships very very much. Northwest Bourbon says, "Cheers, everyone! Don't forget to hit the likes button." Yes, if you guys are enjoying the stream, hit the thumbs up before we go. We got. I still want to try this Old William Tar at the end, but I do want to ask a question. I'm going to pour myself a sample of that. I imagine you don't have any with you because you're traveling. I was going to ask, like, oh, do you have a special bottle like off to the side? But so I'll get that poured. But tell us a little bit, like, what's next for you guys? Like, what's obviously the experience you guys are working on. But are there any kind of fun experiments or fun things you can kind of give us a little tease for?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for setting that up. I absolutely appreciate that. We've got over 150 barrels, and so here's an example of a barrel pick. This is the Whiskey Council. It's my wholesale whiskey company,
Okay.
and so this is a 5 year. It's a Kentucky straight bourbon. It's 122 proof, and so we've got a lot of different barrel selects that are available for our customers that want to do barrel picks. I'm doing a couple of barrel picks here in Nashville and Tennessee, and then certainly across the country, we're continuing to do barrel picks, and so what you're going to find is when you come to our new brand destination, we're going to have the ability to create your own perfect wood finish barrel. And
Mm.
and so super excited about that. We're coming out with a 10-year limited time offering. It should be out September of this year.
Okay.
When we open our new brand destination, we're going to have a super premium release from that opening, and what I would love to do is continue to partner with local breweries and wineries to create these experiences with wood finishing and bourbon barrels. But ultimately we're going to continue to experiment with different wood finishes with our wood scientists. And what I would love to see is we do a wood finish series for the California market, for the
Okay.
Texas
I'm
market.
listening.
How much fun would that be? So we bring, a Clifton in from LA, and we say, look, we want to create a flavor profile that is specific to
Mhm.
Los Angeles,
Mhm.
that is specific, that has meaning. It has meaning of flavor profiles that is for that particular demographic. That's what I see. That's what that excites me to be able to create flavor profiles around different demographics.
Well, listen, if you need a California rep, I'm your guy. I'm happy to listen. I'm trying to. Since I moved to California, I've been kind of like exploring wine like I've never really done before. Wine's never really been my go to drink of choice, but living out in California, wine is a thing. So I've really discovered like wine country. Like I said, I haven't been to Napa yet, but I've just like California wine is a whole really broad spectrum of flavors, and that sounds really incredible. By the way, I saw a comment earlier. Our friend Brandon, who's out in closer to San Diego, but is are you guys in the California market yet? You mentioned you were in 26 states.
We are in the California market.
Okay.
Had a couple of setbacks in that market. Um, bourbon's difficult. I mean, let's just call it out. Bourbon can be difficult, and so the markets, depending on where you are, whether it's the supplier, distributor, the retailer, we're in that market, and we've launched the Sacramento, California, the Los Angeles, the Southern California market. We're there, and we're going to continue to support that market. But I anticipate I'll be out there probably in the next 8 weeks, to that whole market. But super excited to launch RD1 Spirits, and really, the who said it best? The West Coast is the best coast.
I
Yeah,
hear that. You know
yeah.
what? It's hard to say because I've lived on both coasts, and I love them all for their different reasons. But I gotta say, I do love living out here, so I gotta stand by that statement. But
Yeah.
well, that's so cool. Yeah. Is there, if someone's like from a different state, is there somewhere on your website where they can see if it's available in their area?
Yeah. So if you go to RD1 Spirits, there's a place to input whether you want something shipped to you. And
Okay.
we have a shipping company that'll ship to, 40, 45 states across the U.S. market. We also have a store locator. So if we're physically in your
Nice.
state, and we're in 26 markets right now, we could very well be in your state. You'll be able to pull up a store locator and find out where RD1 is located near you. And if you have the ability to have spirits shipped directly to your door, then we have a company that will do that.
One of the other great things that came out of COVID is that, right? Like I think so many, it used to, I mean, even just a few years ago, it used to just be wine and beer that you could ship to your doorstep, but now you can actually ship spirits in so many places, and I love it. So before I go, I do want to do a tasting of this Old William Tar. By the way, this is the bottle I was talking about here.
Yes.
Shout
Yeah.
out to my Patreon supporter, Todd Cooper, who actually sent me this sample. And he knew I was doing this stream. Actually, I shared a bunch of RD1 with him. We're doing a tasting. He's at my top tier of Patreon, so we do a private tasting once a month. So he's getting to try all of these RD1 expressions this Sunday. But he's like, "Oh, you're going on a stream with them on Thursday. Let me send you this." So I'm excited. So you said this is a 12-year release. This was kind of one of the first things you guys put on the shelves. Tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about that. Like, what was that experience like? I mean, you guys were new, like you said. Your business plan was in into 2019, but you opened in October of 2020. Like, was this kind of like? Well, I know RD1 is the brand now, but I'm just curious about the inspiration behind it all.
So we titled this "The Inheritance" because we felt like we inherited something very special,
Hmm.
and we really wanted to create a profile. So this is a 12-year. It's a full proof. What you're drinking there is 120 proof. It's our small batch, and so the different barrels that we had some barrels that were absolutely wonderful at cast strength, and we had some barrels that needed a little bit of assistance, a little
Sure.
bit of water,
Hmm.
and so the small batch at 120 proof, absolutely delicious. And this is a Kentucky straight bourbon, and this is one that we wanted to come out with to say, we're putting a line in the sand to say
Hmm.
we're a brand. We're coming out with a label, WM Tar, and we want people to know this is a significant step in the direction of Lexington, Kentucky. Our partners, when we got together and we created this brand, we wanted to help drive bourbon tourism to Lexington. So we're a part of a group that is wanting to bring people, not to fly into Lexington and go to Bardstown. It's important for you to go to Bardstown, but we
Sure.
want you to recognize that Lexington has a lot to offer, and it's
Hmm.
going to continue to have a lot to offer. So this inheritance was kind of our stepping stone to say, we're putting a line in the sand saying Lexington has a lot of history to tell, and a lot of good bourbon that people can come and enjoy.
Well, I cannot wait to try. I've been nosing it for a bit. Actually, at first, I accidentally picked up the maple barrel and I smelled it. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, oh, okay, wrong
Wait a
glass.
minute.
Yeah, like that's not a 12-year. That's very different. But oh man, the nose on this is incredible. So I'm gonna go ahead and try it. Cheers. Barry, tell us where we can find you on the web. RD1, you also have an Instagram that's fairly
Yeah.
popular. Tell us where to find you.
Yeah, so you can find RD1 Spirits on Facebook and Instagram. You can find me, Barry Brinegar. If you just search, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I'm very engaged. I absolutely love meeting folks, across the country. So, any market that I'm in, if you look on our website, you'll see, where's Waldo with Barry Brinegar in the
Mhm.
U.S. market. I'm traveling to 36 markets this year, or 36 weeks out of the year. I'm traveling to different markets. We have a sales team that is second to none. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're bringing in folks that are very seasoned and are absolutely the best of the best, and so we're super excited to continue to expand the horizons of what more can bourbon do with wood finishing. And so, coming soon to a market near you.
I love it. I love it. Like you said, you're going to be in Nashville for this weekend. What was the festival this weekend?
It's the World of Whiskey, and
World of
so
Whiskey.
the World of Whiskey, it's all over the country. And fortunately, Nashville has the festival coming up this Saturday at Lowe's Vanderbilt Hotel.
Awesome. Well, for those of you that may attend that, please go say hello to Barry. Tell him I sent you. By the way, this Old William Tar is delectable, delicious. I mean, what a special release. And I think what a special occasion just to honor that history. So I'm glad I had the opportunity to try it. Again, thank you, Todd, for the sample. Um, cool. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the stream. I'm going to let you go. I know it's late there. So I'll let you go, but thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to see what's next. You're welcome back anytime. If you guys have any new releases, please let me know. Would love to feature
Absolutely.
them. And if you're ever in California, like let me know. I'd love to stop by and taste what you guys are working on next.
I will be there. I'll make sure to let you know when I am in California. And, got to give a shout out to Chris. Chris in
Oh yeah,
Australia.
yeah.
Love those guys. They're getting ready to come over to the U.S. market, and they have been super supporters of RD1 and WM Tar, and Chris, I have a special bottle for you when you come over. Absolutely
He
looking
made a
forward to
comment
seeing you.
earlier. He was like, "You better be saving a good barrel for me, Barry."
Absolutely, 100%.
Awesome.
Well, Clifton, man, thank you so much. Really appreciate being on your podcast and your YouTube. I will let you know when I'm in the market. Maybe we can hang out. I'll treat you
Yeah.
to dinner when I come out, and we'll have a couple of special pours.
Sounds incredible. Well, thank you, Barry, so much. You guys go follow him on Instagram. Follow RD1 on Instagram and Facebook. Cheers. I will see you guys next week. Again, reminder, movie night tomorrow night. Our after party for Patreon is right after this. But until next time, cheers. I will see you guys next week. And have a great rest of your day. Cheers, all.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks.